Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark, where we learn to accept living in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.tv. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We share information about the facts of radiation and the nuclear industry. We discuss vital current events and explore the roots of social engineering that has caused so many of our beloved friends and family to intentionally ignore the most critical, catastrophic event in human history. We interview activists who do the hard work to discover the truth and get the word out. We dispose the NRC's daily nuclear alerts and take phone calls from our listeners in an effort to fully engage on all topics that are changing our world. We explore exactly how radiation affects our bodies and minds to dissipate your fears and face the truth. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. We share information on how to take your life back from the systems intent on enslaving our bodies, minds, and souls. The Age of Fission radio show will create a venue that all will choose in order to actively engage to save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Hey UCY radio listeners, this is Lonnie Clark on UCY.tv. That was a pretty painful introduction. We'll have to work on it. Obviously, this is our debut, and thank you for listening. I'll be here on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And actually, that intro was really perfect because this is exactly what we have to do in the nuclear industry. They do everything they can to throw marbles at our feet so that we trip up and fall. And we must be determined to succeed in stopping them. They are coming out hard. Nobody's really paying attention, but in researching today's debut show, I realized that they are going behind the scenes and working in every single state government in the United States to push nuclear power harder and harder and lying about it bigger and bigger. This story about the Tokyo Electric executives being charged in Fukushima is another perfect example of this. Those men will never go to jail. Will never see 1 day of jail time. Will never pay a single dollar in liability. They will never be accountable. That is what the nuclear industry is all about. Non-accountability, destroying the planet, disregarding real science, and making shitloads of money. And that's why, ever since I found out about Fukushima, and I actually was just like many Americans after 3/11/11, I thought our government told us the truth. I had a nightmare on May 5th, 2012. I saw the whole sky light up in orange. I thought it was real. I went to the internet in the middle of the night and discovered Fukushima had nuclear meltdowns. We hadn't even been told that they weren't buried. I thought that just like the government said, don't worry, there's no harm from radiation. And the more I dig into this, the more I find out that it's actually not our government running the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Our governments have been taken over by the nuclear industry 100%. Just like these activists in Japan, they've pushed hard to get these fucking executives accountable. What is the second sentence in the article from Reuters say? The decision is unlikely to lead to a conviction of former executives after prosecutors twice, not once, twice, said they would not bring charges, but means they will be summoned to appear in court to give evidence. So they're telling us, they're prepping us already they're giving us the finger before it even starts. This is why every single person has to understand that stopping the nuclear energy industry And actually, they're not energy, they're just nuclear murderers. Every single person needs to understand the depth of the lying and the fascism that has enveloped the entire world governments revolving nuclear energy. Since Hitler's scientists discovered nuclear energy, they have controlled all of the military forces. When they came into the United States and infiltrated our government secretly through the paperclip program, where they started the NRC, the nuclear, I think it was called the AEC, Atomic Energy Commission. And they started, what did they do? They started the pharmaceutical industry, the big pharma industry, the health insurance, or the profit for health insurance industry. I mean, these people have done nothing but harm us. So this is why I'm here, and I really want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank Jules for giving me this opportunity. I will be here on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Hopefully by Wednesday we'll have that intro fixed, because that great idea, but it really sucked. It was almost painful to listen to for two minutes. And so hopefully we'll have it fixed by Monday. We may have to redo the whole thing. I don't know what went wrong technically, but thanks for hanging in there, because that was pretty painful, even for me. So I want to kind of give you the format today. This is my the debut show of our show, the Age of Fission. I want to thank Thomas Ackerman for his brilliance of coming up with that phrase, the Age of Fission. I got Tom's permission to use that name on our radio show. And I kind of want to give you the format of how the show is going to be, because I'll be on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I plan on interviewing people. Hopefully by Wednesday I will have an interview with Thomas Ackerman. We can talk about the free radicals. I thought it would be appropriate to interview him first, since the show is named after an idea that he came up with. There are other anti-nuke activists that I have not been able to connect with that hopefully will be in touch with us. I have spoken with Shane Russell. He'd be very happy to share his ideas and interpretation on things. So I plan on having interviews with anti-nuke activists and social engineering activists. As it turns out, Eric Jordan is one of those people. He has personally been studying the social engineering thing. He and I kind of got into a conversation about that about a week ago, and he agreed that he would be willing to be interviewed. So hopefully we'll be able to get that going too. And I wanted to thank Kevin Blanche for all the hard work he's done. He and I have been working together with the Post-Ignorance Project. Hopefully you'll be listening to him on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. This is Pacific Standard Time I'm talking, because that's where I'm at. I'm in Eugene, Oregon. But Kevin is on the radio, as you probably know, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. He and I have not been able to connect at all since he's been back from Europe. So I don't know when he'll be on the radio, but hopefully at some point in the future, we can slow him down to get him on the radio. And I'm going to hopefully do regular interviews with people, because this business, everybody has a little niche on what they can understand and talk about. And there's just not enough time in 1 hour to interview somebody once. So I'm hoping that we can have it like, I don't know, every third Wednesday, say, have Tom on, and then every second Wednesday we could have on Shane Russell. So this is the debut show. We'll see how it goes. We have to be flexible with this. The idea is to make this show powerful and to help it be a tool for the people who listen to this and who can share the podcast of this radio to get people actively engaged. I saw a photo of the Fallujah babies on Facebook. The caption said, "This is what you do when you vote and pay taxes. This is what you're endorsing." And frankly, I was really livid over that statement, because that's exactly opposite of what you're doing. If you do not vote and you do not stay publicly engaged and you do not push back against the military that has taken over our government, that's exactly what we get. We have had nothing but lies since World War II and probably before. no doubt, which is why they felt perfectly comfortable doing what they did. But the Fallujah babies are real. The babies, we don't see them, up in Hanford, where babies are born deformed and mutated often. It's kept under. They don't even keep track of statistics of that. In fact, most hospitals don't keep track of oncology statistics. And they don't keep track of deformed baby statistics. They just don't keep track, at least in the United States. And that's why, because of the nuclear industry, because of the mutations. John Goffman said a long time ago, the 90% rule. He studied the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki a long time ago. He followed them for 20 years. Why would a nuclear scientist follow the victims of radiation for 20 years when he knew the government was doing it? Because 10 years afterwards, he realized that the government was basically destroying the evidence. They were they were cherry picking it, which is not science. Science is you take in all the data and you don't have a preconceived conclusion. And the nuclear industry wants a preconceived conclusion. In fact, right now, we're about being bombarded with that whole idea of a preconceived conclusion. They're trying to convince people that low-level radiation is actually healthy for you. If you guys are not paying attention, I would just go to thehill.com and you'll see a little thing that says sponsored, America's Nuclear Energy Future. And it pulls up articles that says things like this. Familiarity makes a difference. 83% of plant neighbors favor use of nuclear energy compared to 68% of the general public, surveyed this last February. Nearly twice as many plant neighbors strongly favor nuclear energy compared with the general public, 27%. This is what happens. The people that live near a nuclear power plant, there's a psychological impact when you're living near something that is devastatingly dangerous. You begin to accept it as normal. And what we have been trained in our country is to not even acknowledge the harm that nuclear energy causes. Not even acknowledge it. Children are born with encephalitis, it's an anomaly. Children are born with, genetic mutations, it's an anomaly. I mean, seriously, it is a really serious heartbreak to see what we have done with our entire culture in regards to nuclear energy. And then this is the very interesting thing. This is almost like Pavlov's dog. When you ask somebody, I was out on a camping trip this last weekend. Many of you know who have known me before. My name is Lonnie Clark, and I am, worked with Kevin. And I've been in school since 2012. I went back to school. And I am now taking a science class called The Ecology of the Forest in the summer. We drove down to the redwoods. We're going out to all these plant sites, and I'm learning about the forest. We drove down to the redwoods, which are magnificent. But there are only 4% of the redwoods there left. So during the camping trip, I asked my campmates, we talked a little bit about it. People do not want to talk about radiation or Fukushima. They kind of give you the skank eye if you start talking about it, right? So after doing this for 3 years, I've learned to sort of ease into it and not just bombard people with information. As soon as I start talking about it in a logical sense, they start talking about climate change. They start talking about other issues. People really do not comprehend the massive danger that we are in, because radiation takes a long time to harm the host. That's all there is to it. It just takes a long time ago. I'm going to be bringing you articles, scientific journal articles, and reading little sections of it for you to help us understand what the truth is, because in the late 40s and 50s, there was a lot of documentation about the effects of nuclear radiation. And there is an author right now. He writes for the Forbes magazine. I've seen articles by him in I think it's on the Hill, New York Times. His name is James Conca. He's a nuclear propagandist, essentially. In his latest article for Forbes magazine, he said something like, well, in the early days of radiation, people had had a reason to be fearful of it. But in modern technology, we don't have as much, there's not as much danger from radiation. He didn't say how that happened. He didn't talk about the science that made radiation safe. What he was doing was planting the seed in your head. It's kind of like if you turn on Morning Joe in the United States and you turn on MSNBC, you get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And right now in our political machine, they're pushing Hillary Clinton. They're starting to accept Joe Biden because everybody hates Hillary, Monsanto, Westinghouse, Clinton. And they talk about the Republicans, you know, the dog and pony show, the Dumb and Dumberer show going on with the Republican Party. They never once mentioned Bernie Sanders, who is scaring the bejesus out of both of these parties because he's pushing back. He wants to reinstate the New Deal, which has effectively been really destroyed. Reagan just killed the New Deal, and it's been inching out to where now in the United States, 1 in 5 children are homeless. I mean, these are real statistics. 1 in 5 children are homeless. I think I read that 1 in 3 children go to bed hungry every single day, if not 1 in 5 in some area. I mean, one out of 1, like 50% of children in some areas go to bed hungry. I mean, people say, oh, we're headed down the dark road. We're going to turn into a third world nation. Well, guess what, folks? We've turned into a third world nation. We are not a first world nation anymore. 1/5 of our populace, the children are homeless. That's a third world nation. It is an outrage that Americans accept this, and then on the other hand say, if you pay taxes and you vote, you're condoning the crimes of the military. What's happened is the crimes of the military are being perpetrated because nobody votes, nobody gets engaged. Ron Wyden can force the Unpatriot Act down our throats. Ron Wyden can stop Jeff Merkley, who is our 2 senators. Jeff Merkley is a senator from Oregon. Ron Wyden is a senator from Oregon. And as a caveat, I'm explaining that to you because very few people even know who their senators are or the function of the Senate. Jeff Merkley wrote a bill to roll back the Price-Anderson Act and make somebody frickin' accountable for what they've done in Hanford. The Bechtel Corporation completely broke the law, and now the water up in Seattle is threatened because of Bechtel Corporation, and nobody has to go to jail. And they continue to get contracts from the DOE. So Jeff Merkley wrote a really great piece of legislation to make someone accountable, to have some teeth put into some of these regulations. And you know who stopped it? Go along to get along, Ron. Exactly. Him, Harry Reid, and the Republicans stopped it from even going to the floor of the Senate. So my radio show is going to be about a lot of these things, and I have to talk about politics because people don't like politics, but guess what? We are politics. We live in politics. This is our life, folks. We can't just decide, oh, we're not going to get actively engaged. If you do decide to not get actively engaged, then, you know, the reality is you're not doing anybody a favor by not being actively engaged. It takes a community to build the world. And we have a responsibility as adults to enjoy our lives, to create a world that makes things work. Not just like roll over and let the fucking truck keep running over you. It's completely outrageous. On Wednesday, I'm going to be actually reading. I'm going to pull a lot of these articles, these scientific articles, just on the basis of the low-level radiation, because really the big hot button that people really need to understand is there is no accountability in the nuclear industry. Zero. Those fucking TEPCO executives are not going to jail. So, you know, we don't have to jump up and down and feel cheery that it's going to happen. We're just going to allow them to lie under oath, and then they're going to get held off scot-free. Maybe some underling might go to jail for a year, but I doubt it. And we also need to learn how the nuclear industry is infiltrating the states' governments. Because right now in Illinois, they're putting up a bill to keep there's nuclear power plants being, they're being closed down because they were scheduled to be closed down. Nuclear power plants were built for 40 to 60 years. We've been kicking it down the road, like giving them, the NRC just rubber stamps every single request to extend the life of a nuclear power plant without regard to safety. Completely without regard to safety. The nuclear industry is going after Governor Pataki, I think that's his name, in New York. Because they want to close down Indian Point because it's leaking radiation into the drinking water in New York City. So they want to close it down. The nuclear industry is pushing back and paying the state senators and representatives money to keep the nuclear power plant open. And if every single person listening to this radio station is in New York, is not registered to vote, and is not calling their elected officials in the state of New York, your state elected officials, your senators, your council members, every state has it set up differently. It's up to you to find out how your government works, because we are the government. In a democracy, we are the government. And we're not really technically a democracy. We're a republic where we send in people. We have a lot of people, and then we have these, they're supposed to reflect our votes. A democracy would be, we would have an online vote on every single item that went up in the Senate, which would fucking be awesome, don't you think? But we don't have that. We have a representative government where we have a republic where guys go in there and they're supposed to represent us. And so if we don't let them know, if we're not contacting them, and the only people they're hearing from is the nuclear industry or the energy cartels, who do you think they're going to listen to? If they think nobody cares, who do you think they're going to listen to? They have no idea. It's up to us to educate our elected officials. It is up to us to bring them information. I mean, they're busy dialing for dollars. The way we have our system going, they don't even have time to read the legislation. They have to talk to lobbyists to get their next election money in. It's a complete outrage. Or they have to lobby and fight off, attacks. I mean, I guess this sparks the day. Today sparks the day when the environmentalists have lost. The Arctic drilling has started. It's starting. It's going, folks. They don't give a flying fuck about our government. They don't care about our planet. They don't care about the human beings. They don't care about the animals. These are people who really believe that God created Earth for man and we have a right to destroy it. Let me tell you what, I was in the Redwoods this last weekend. And the Redwoods are, the ones that I saw, they were babies at 500 to 600 years old. They were huge, beyond gigantic trees. The trunk of those trees were the size of a small building. Those are live, sentient beings that are still living. We need plants on our planet for humans to breathe. What does it take for people to comprehend that? It's completely astounding that people have forgotten what humans need to live on. We end up in a culture where we sit in front of a computer all day. And I kind of think it's called radiation brain. I think it affects not just our physical bodies, I think it affects our emotional bodies and the way we perceive things. And people just lean into it and go, well, you got to die of something. No, you don't have to die of something. It's not something, it's radiation. Like, do you want a miserable, horrible death, or do you want to live a decent life? This is the thing. You can live a long time and be radiated. You don't die immediately from radiation. Ask every cancer victim lying in the hospital. Do you think they're fucking having fun, dying of misery, fighting for their fucking lives for 1 to 2 years every single day, going to sleep wondering, I wonder if this horrible shit they're doing to me is going to make me live? And then after they do get to live, then what? Like, look at Kevin Blanche, survivor of AML leukemia. Why? Because he had the money to get the right treatment. because he was in the right place at the right time, and he was committed to changing his life. He changed his diet. He exercises. He works hard. He goes out, and he fights for living. And I guarantee you every single day he wakes up, he thinks about living. He wants to live. And in the back of his head, he can't help but wonder if this shit's going to come back. He's a survivor. And he's still thinking about cancer. And I'm not talking about cancer for other people. He's thinking about cancer about himself. And that's how every cancer survivor thinks. They keep wondering when it's coming. And some of them will survive. Some of them will go back into remission. And, that's just one segment of the population affected by radiation, you guys. What about the people that get constant skin rashes? Or they get cysts, weird kind of cysts that don't hurt your life, but they're very uncomfortable. They make your life very uncomfortable. Ear bleeding, nose bleeds. The poor people in Japan, their fucking noses are bleeding. People have chronic nosebleeds in Japan. I mean, they're not dying, but these are really horrible, inconveniences. They make your quality of life goes down when you're affected by radiation. And the people who are doing it are only doing it for one thing: money. They want money. They want every dime. They want complete power. They want money. And they want people to shut the fuck up. They want you not to be engaged in politics. They want you not to vote. They want you to just shake your head and go along with the clown car. Pick a clown car, the Democratic clown car or the Republican clown car. That's why they're fucking scared to death of Bernie Sanders, because he refuses to jump in. He may be running as a Democrat, but he's not talking like a Democrat. It's a complete outrage, folks, which is why I am motivated to be here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for as long as you guys can possibly stand me talking about this. Because we have got to, rally the troops. That's one of the things Kevin Blanche says on his show, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. We have to get people going. And we're not going to scream and yell and get people going by freaking them out. People have got to want to be actively engaged. It's about, do you care about this planet? Helen Caldicott used to say, her radio show was that, if you love this planet. Well, obviously not enough people love the planet because her radio show's off the air now. And I mean, it's intentional. It's the social engineering, which is going to be part of the second half of this show. I'm going to intermix all this. I'm going to tell you about the nuclear alerts, which are shocking in their own. The NRC just puts that information out there. Nobody reads it. That's why they put it out there, because they know nobody even bothers to open up, go to Google and go NRC alerts. And then once you get the NRC alerts, do you actually really take action and give them a call and say, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. What's going on? Call your elected representatives. Call the Energy Department. I mean, who's running the Energy Committee now in the Senate is Inhofe. These are the fuckers that really could care less about our planet. All they care about is money, and they actually don't care if millions of us die because we're the riffraff. We're the people that, refuse to do what they say. I don't know how many of you out there have read two books. One book is called 1984, and the other one is, I'm going to give you the author's name, 1984 by George Orwell, and Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. These are two books that everybody needs to read in our current culture because, unfortunately, it seems like our elected officials have used those books as instruction manuals. They were science fiction books written a long time ago about what could happen. Well, guess what? It's happening. And especially Brave New World, where people just click their heels and no big deal. They don't even think about it. Oh, we're going to have to, nobody has sex anymore. They go to the sperm banks to make babies. And they think it's disgusting to have sex. The human contact is considered disgusting. No one dares to touch each other. It's a complete outrage. This is not what humanity is about. It's not what life is about. We're on the precipice of really destroying our planet, people. Really, seriously. This is why when I met Kevin Blanche, on the YouTubes. I met Kevin Blanch on the YouTubes. He and I have had really very little personal contact. We're not really friends, but we have one key common thing going on. Is we both get it very fundamentally. We both get it. That people have given up in our political system. People have given up caring about their lives. And we joined forces on March 13th, 2011. Early in March, I think it was February, he came to Eugene March 13th, 2011 and gave a presentation on Fukushima. And I said, you can go traveling around the country and wake people up. And guess what? He's fucking wore himself ragged going all over this fucking country. And nobody really, he'll go out. We put out things and we try to advertise on the internet and nobody even goes out. Even the people that follow him on the YouTubes. They don't even show up. They just can't get there. We're sort of just pulling our hair out. We can't really figure out what it's going to take. I kind of consider it myself personally. I think it's about radiation brain. I think people have been genetically engineered to just stay passive. And I think to myself, what makes me the kind of personality that just can't stay passive? And I think it has to do with the fact that I am not afraid. Just like Kevin. Kevin is not afraid. Thomas Ackerman is not afraid. Shane Russell is not afraid. People are not afraid to stand up, and that's what it's going to take. We need, there was a time people think, oh, well, World War II is the good war, right? That's where there were real heroes. As if the fucking Vietnam vets weren't real heroes. You know how many people they actually saved and did not harm against the words of the commanding soldiers? Lots of them. They didn't just go in and kill willy-nilly. And that's why they created the drones. Because our soldiers are not willing to kill innocent people. So they created drones. And now instead of having our soldiers do it because they found out that our soldiers are having PTSD just from dropping drones on civilians, they've subcontracted it to psychopaths. Like Eric Prince from Blackwater. People who love to kill. Murder, death, kill is their fun. I met a man this weekend in our group. He is in our science class. He's a disabled veteran. I don't know, either Iraq or Afghanistan. Yesterday was his 10-year anniversary of having his body blown up. They attached his leg. The guy doesn't look more than 35 years old, maybe 40, but he was young when he went over there. He did it for our country. His wife is his full-time caretaker. And people, she announced she's his full-time caretaker because she had to go with him to do this hike. We went out to the redwoods to identify plants, get to know the ecology of the forest. He's going to school to improve himself 10 years after. He was in the hospital for 6 years. And, the military calls him a success. He is a success because he's alive. His parents didn't lose him. But is that a success? The guy is just broken physically and probably emotionally. I don't know him. He seems like a decent human being. But there is nobody that comes out of war in one piece, folks, whether you get your limbs blown up or not. War is a horrible state of affair. And the only reason we have war is for profit. That's the only reason that we have war. It is not for democracy, and it is not to help people out. We did not go to war in those countries to help them get democracy. We went there to take over their resources and their assets. And in the meantime, just like in Fallujah, they spread depleted uranium weapons, and now the Fallujah people have been told don't have babies. It is such an outrage that the nuclear industry does not even count or keep track of the harm they do. One of the articles that I found while I was doing research for this show this morning was an article that was written a long time ago about the harm of nuclear energy. That basically it was written in the Nation magazine a long time ago. I think it was 1988, where they said that somehow the Atomic Energy Commission and the National NCRP Basically, all of their assumptions are incorrect. And what's happened is, since they were able to effectively drum John Goffman and Arthur Tamplin out of the industry, two very well-known, prominent anti-nuke activists who were nuclear scientists who started studying the harm of nuclear radiation on the body. Their first job was to come up with an idea of, is there hormesis in low-level radiation, which is the argument they're telling us today. This is what's being pushed. This is why we really, really, really need to push back on this, folks. People need to get actively engaged. They drummed John Goffman out of the industry. He died about 15 years ago, almost 20 years ago. You could not write this in a science fiction book. It would sound completely incredulous, but this is exactly what happened. I think John Goffman died, I think they said in 1998, my recollection is. His entire life he fought the nuclear industry. Once he realized that it does no good. Hormesis, for those of you who do not know, is when you take a substance that's harmful for your body at low dosages, and eventually your body learns to acclimate to it so that you can take higher levels of it and it won't affect you negatively. So that's what they want to do. And essentially since World War II, that's what they've been doing. They have fucking carpet bombed the planet with nuclear radiation. Low levels of radiation. This is why they cannot test the radiation, folks, because they've been carpet bombing the planet with radiation since World War II. So their idea is like, gee, since World War II, yes, the cancer rates have gone up, but we created a cancer industry to keep people from being cured. It's kind of like the military idea. We don't have high levels of mortality among our soldiers because we have all this technological medical industry that can just slice and dice and put people back together like RoboCop. Do they have the same quality of life that they had before? Never. Can they be happy, loving parents as they dreamt of being as children? Never. This man that I met this weekend, I don't know if he can have kids, but the fact is, if he had children, he's not going to be running out playing hopscotch with his daughters, you know what I mean, or his sons. He's not going to be playing tag. He is in constant pain, and he holds up. My hat is off to him, to be honest. Other members of our group, when we were talking about the radiation, and we're sitting in the redwoods, and I said to him, what's going to happen when the forests are gone? What's going to happen to humans? What's going to happen when the whales are gone and the seals are gone? We already know the starfish are gone. They're not coming back. The sea anemones, they're not coming back. They're not going to spring back next year. Radiation has destroyed them, and the seals and the whales are just now beginning to die. What's going to happen? I mean, what's these guys' plans? What are they going to say? Oops, we're sorry. People feel happy that we're going to get to see these faces of these fuckers from TEPCO in court. They've been indicted. They still get to live in their pristine, rich motherfucking houses and go about their daily lives. They're not going to go to jail. They're not going to pay a fine. They're still going to deny the people in Fukushima are being forced to go back to live in a radiated area. I mean, Alan Grayson was joking when he said the Republican plan for health care was to die quickly. But that seems to be exactly what the plan is, die quickly. Let's just move the people back into Fukushima. And the question is, what keeps people from being actively engaged? That is really the question. Excuse me. Let me shut this door. Close that door. So, this is what the Age of Fission radio is going to be about, folks. I'm going to talk about this until we get people actively engaged. I am a full-time student. I work full-time. I jumped at this opportunity to be on the radio 3 times a week because I'm busting at the guts, to tell you the truth. I cannot believe our culture is just weak and passive and completely don't get it. You know, people still eat fish. We stopped at a restaurant on the way back from the Redwoods. One of the people driving in my car wanted halibut. You know, I said, okay, so I'm not going to say anything to you, because the first time she wanted to eat fish, my mouth fell down like, what? All these people still eat fish. They think that the fish is okay. The fish is not okay. Unless you know that your fish comes out of a little pond and it's fed exactly the right thing, you can pretty much guarantee your fish is at least full of mercury, if not completely full of cesium-137. And in fact, that brings me up to an article that I was reading this morning. You know what the new thing is? Cesium-137, this is what they're saying. They don't know why iodine-131 does not affect adults. And they're starting to say that cesium-137 doesn't affect people very badly. Now, all of these are just nuclear lies. These guys, I mean, I don't honestly comprehend how the people who work in the nuclear industry can propagate the lies. Is it worth making $200,000 a year to kill the planet? I mean, the petty greediness of it all is beyond comprehension. You know, it is up to the nuclear scientists to help save our planet and not kill it. The Age of Fission radio is going to be about several things. I'm going to be talking about the nuclear cartel. Okay, Thomas Ackerman, I won't call it. Tom says we shouldn't call it the cartel because that sounds too nice. We'll just call them the nuclear murderers. You know, they've been doing nothing but lie since the day that nuclear radiation was discovered. And by the way, folks, they didn't even tell us there was nuclear waste for over 20 years. That'll tell you the depth of the depravity of these motherfuckers. So, you know, we have to stay vigilant on them. I'm going to be talking about social engineering, because the social engineering is exactly why people don't get actively engaged. This morning, watching Morning Joe, do you know that they compared the Republicans, they compared them to, what's that guy with the funny hair? His name escapes me. But they refuse to mention Bernie Sanders' name because they don't want people to hear his name. And maybe that's why I can't remember Donald Trump's name, because he just drives me crazy. These people are like selfish. They're the quintessential example of selfish, greedy, hateful elitists who think that they're better than everybody else because they have shitloads of money. They live in these pristine houses and they have their little ponds, and they really do believe in the serfdom. The income inequality now is worse than in the days of Dickens. And most people, they read Dickens and go, oh my God, that was a horrible time on our planet. Actually, a lot more harmful now than it was then. At least the people in power were not destroying the health and safety of the planet. They were just murdering civilizations. On this one, they are killing our environment. One of the things that we heard this weekend was that the stuff they're doing with the chemtrails, I don't know what's in there, but it's basically suffocating the trees. It's causing the aluminum to go into the dirt, and the plants cannot absorb enough water, which is exacerbating the droughts. You know, they know this stuff. This is the shock. If we're hearing about it, you know the fucking people doing the harm know about it. I mean, we're the second person on the line who hears this information, maybe third, fourth, and fifth. The people who are actively engaged in the industry are manipulating the information so that they can continue to make money and have power and eliminate the population to a size that they think is okay because they want to live in complete abundance for themselves and nobody else. While at the same time, they're keeping women from finding birth control. It is cruelty beyond cruelty. The depravity of this culture is shocking. But, you know, it's kind of like the opposite force. In physics, we learn for every force, there's always an opposing force, which is, I guess, our hope for inspiration. And that's going to be the other part of this radio show. I want to help people figure out how to stay happy and how to live in joy and not go, ugh, It's such a horrible world. The youth, all of the youth I've talked to are so disheartened. And what we need to do is help them get actively engaged and feel excited about living. Because there is a lot of living to do that's really fun. And the more actively you get engaged, the more powerful you feel in your own life. If we could, when we stop the nuclear industry, I'm not going to say if, when we stop the nuclear industry, when we save the planet, when we stop the energy cartel, when we learn to live with less energy, when we find sources of energy we have sources of energy that's relatively free without destroying the planet. There are ideas we have not even discovered. There is sound healing. There's natural healing. Taking pharmaceuticals only harms your body. I mean, there is no reason for people to go to these slice and dice doctors and just fill their bodies up with pharmaceuticals all day long that shuts down your systems. But it does take some courage to figure out how to wean yourself off of it. It does take some courage and some commitment and a desire to live instead of, oh, I'm just going to live through it. We're not talking about living through it. We're talking about living for it, living for life. Having the courage to do the artwork that you keep thinking about instead of saying, oh, I'm just a bad artist, I can't do that. No, everyone has a right to be an artist, to express your art. It doesn't mean you're going to make a living as an art, but it doesn't mean you don't have to make a living. It's not about making money and spending your life being an artist to say you're an artist. To express yourself through poetry, to write those short stories, to move people, to tell stories, be a storyteller, learn how to juggle. I mean, juggling is a magnificent sport. I love juggling personally because the reason I started juggling was so that I would learn about success. Because jugglers fail an awful lot. And every time, in order to juggle, you have to persevere. You will fail. No one's a born juggler. So you have to persevere. And frankly, you have to learn how to throw one ball. Throwing one ball is very difficult. Then you have to learn how to throw two just to get the basic cascade down. 2 is hard. 3 is easy. Life gets easier the more proficient you are at it. But it takes perseverance. Perseverance brings success. And this is what our culture has lost, is the perseverance and the joy through perseverance. I mean, when I learned how to juggle, I felt like I got free. And, there's an analogy to juggling because really life is about juggling. And it's not about not doing things and not getting actively engaged. It's like this morning, the intro to my radio show, the first day, the Age of Fission, Jules been on vacation and busy. I was away. I did not have time to listen to it. We just boom, had to slam it through. It's not perfect, but guess what? I'm still grateful for it. And, it's a bit embarrassing the very first day on the radio to have the intro sound like garbage, but for God's sakes, we did the best we could. That's one of the 4 agreements. Do your best. We're going to go at it until we get it right. It might not be right by Wednesday, might not be right by Friday. It might take a few weeks for us to get this together because Jules is full-time, super busy on her own away from this radio show. I'm super busy full-time on my own. So it may take some time, but that's called living, folks. There's no shame in it. I mean, there is no shame in not doing things perfectly right the first time. And you know what is the shame? Is when people refuse to actively engage. When they just sit in their houses and watch television or sit on the internet and play video games all day long, pretending that they're living a life when they're not living at all. They're just being like little electronic plug-ins. The human beings have such a greater capacity. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard we only use 10% of our brain. Now, imagine if we could just use 20% of our brain. If we've created this, maybe that 10% is overestimating it. I don't know. I'm not the science type. I'm beginning to get to be the science type, though, because I'm beginning to see that what really makes the world rock is science. I read an article last week about mushrooms might be the way to heal our planet, that they're discovering mushrooms are like a big, gigantic computer. And what they do is they take the toxins in the earth, they change it around biochemically, and make it beneficial to be able to grow plants from. Which kind of makes sense because I do know that down in New Orleans, when BP killed the Gulf Stream, one of the ways that they are healing the Gulf is with mushrooms. They're planting mushrooms. In Fukushima, they're planting mushrooms. So probably this study was generated by this idea. And we're learning as humans, we're so close to becoming a peaceful, loving species that can sustain ourselves without war. But the war profiteers are going down, kicking and screaming and taking everybody that they can through radiation, through nuclear war, because regular war just doesn't kill enough people. It is so important for every single person to just, instead of saying the government's corrupt and there's nothing we can do about it, to say, yes, the government's corrupt and we're going to force these motherfuckers to get honest again, to love our planet, to be human beings. And if not, we're kicking them out of the office. If they steal our elections, we're going to go sit down on the Capitol steps and say, fuck you, you're not stealing our elections. Americans have got to stop being passive instead of passive aggressive. What do you think all the bullshit is on the internet with all the yelling and screaming and name calling? You're this, you're a liberal, you're a blah, 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 you're a right winger. We're not left wingers and right wingers. We're not names. It is demeaning to call people names. And the reason we do it is because it demeans people and stops them in their track. Enough people get stopped in their track from getting actively engaged. That comes directly from the war profiteers, people. The same, and I consider the GMO manufacturers to be war profiteers because they are part of the war. They are on the war on our planet. There's a war against life on this planet. We are not looking for World War III. It is already here. The capitalistic money means everything is the same thesis that took the Queen of England down to South America to destroy the Peruvian culture, the Mexican culture, every culture that they ran into, they strung those people up. Do you know that the Peruvians, when they invaded Peru, one of their, there was a man that was born, I don't remember his name, it's his big long name, but he was the son of a Peruvian princess who was taken as a wife by a Spaniard, by one of the Spaniards that ran that place. He rewrote the Bible. He wrote 15, the Peruvians did not have a written language. He decided he was going to learn how to write. So he rewrote the Bible. He created a language to rewrite the Bible. He wrote a 1,500-page document that he sent to the King of Spain, the King Queen of Spain, so they could read and understand that the Peruvians were human beings. It got shipped summarily. He gave it with a beautiful, loving heart, shipped it off to Spain, and it was never read, sat in the archives and never read for over 300 years. So we cannot go about just assuming we can talk to the powers that be and they're going to be really cool with us and make sure our voices are heard. It's up to us to make sure we get our point across, that we are diligent. This is why I'm willing to do this radio show 3 times a week from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm not an early bird. Personally, I never even start my office till 9 or 10 o'clock. The reason I'm doing it is this is fucking critical, folks. The planet is on the precipice of being completely destroyed, and human beings have been given up. We have given up on our culture. We live in the age of fission, period. Fukushima happened. The age of fission is ongoing from now until humans can think. Or at least until humans go away. Every species dies. It has an extinct life. It'll live a few million years probably. We still have a long ways to go in our species. So I personally don't want it to be so that in 300 years we have very few humans with 10 fingers and 4 legs and 2 noses. Like that kind of shit, they might just turn that into being normal. Who the fuck knows? I mean, the people that are running the planet right now really are murderous monsters, and there is no getting around that fact. You think Donald Trump gives a crap about nuclear radiation? He thinks he has enough money to protect himself. Just like Steve Jobs, Steve slave laborer Jobs. I mean, these people that are super rich, I mean, why do you think that Bill Gates wants to give, sterility pills to people secretly inside the vaccines? They're trying to limit the population. Instead of educating people, allowing them to get birth control, they want to do it in devious means because it gives them more power. It makes them feel powerful. It's up to us, people. The Age of Fission is about learning how to enjoy life, creating your own artwork, writing your stories, making a legacy of humanity, sharing and loving with your children, deciding to get healed from your own imbalances, choosing. We live in a culture where, men just basically feel like they have a right to push people around. And this is where we're at. This is why I have to say I really admire Thomas Ackerman for his role modeling of what it means to be a real man. He's a loving human being. He's pursued his life. He educated himself. He's developed relationships, and he cares, and he thinks deeply about stuff. And he doesn't demean people by calling them names and catcalling and just picking fights and deciding that, he's going to bully his way through bullshit. It is really up to us to choose how we're going to live on this planet. And we can choose. And I hope that you'll be here with us for the next, I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how long I'll be here or how this show will develop. But I will tell you what, I'll be here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday interviewing anti-nuke activists. I want to bring people together. My goal is to gather up the forces and interview people. Even if we don't get along, even if we don't agree, I want to hear alternative voices that make sense. People with information need to be heard. And we need to get them interviewed. We need to have us start talking about ideas. We need to have cordial discourse with each other and explaining information, because all of us listening to this radio show have a little bit of knowledge and power that we could share with each other. So it's really important for us to learn how to just love, engage life, and just love our planet. And we do love our planet. That's why we're listening. One of the things I'll be doing, I hope, on Wednesday is discussing this idea with Ackerman about what it means to really be fully engaged. Because the Age of Fission is here. Fukushima created fission. We have never in the history of human history that we know of had to live through 3 nuclear meltdowns, having gone into China syndrome, to where it's fission, where the radiation is just self-replicating. We cannot stop it. The nuclear industry, I don't even know if they are. There are some people who say that they're working on it to develop a way to stop it, and they're just not telling us. At this point, all we see is complete denial. I see we're running into the end of the time here on the hour. It sure goes fast. This is why I probably need 3 days so that we can get in the full discussions. I will be having a number where people can call in on the radio show, and you can talk to me live so that we can fully engage and won't just me to be talking. I want to be interviewing people. I'll be doing the NRC alerts. I didn't actually get to the NRC alerts, so on Wednesday, before I interview Thomas, I'll get the NRC alerts actively engaged. And I will be talking about this because the nuclear energy industry is really going hard after our states, folks. They want to keep these old, dying, decaying nuclear power plants alive and running to the detriment of our planet. They're pushing hard to keep the Indian Point open, even though it's leaking tritium into the water source. So, and then it makes you wonder how many other nuclear power plants are leaking that they're not telling us about. Probably all of them.